So
Hello,
we
everyone.
have Anna from Fermented Homestead. We have Darcy from the Purposeful Pantry. And we have Lisa from Sutton's Days. Hi. And we are here to help you along your preservation path. Once a month. Once a month we do this. And it's normally not as chaotic as this month, but there's been a lot going on. So first, Darcy, are you feeling better?
I'm feeling great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So Darcy is recovering from her surgery still, but kind of getting back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Anna, how's things going with you? Hi, Anna.
Anna, did we lose you?
No, I just realized that I have I'm trying to find the bubbles. How do I? Hi.
Hi. Anna's working on technical difficulties. I am here in northeastern Michigan, currently sweating my butt off, fighting bugs, and doing all the fun stuff. Oh yeah, so apparently while I was out yesterday afternoon, I scheduled it for once we fixed the date on the thumbnail. Then I put the wrong date when I put it up. And so it was saying, hey, it's going to go live. And hey, and so Brian V texted me. Yeah, Brian has my phone number. Be afraid. Okay. And said, hey, where are you? So now he's in there I told everyone yesterday that you were giving out virtual spam vouchers, but they weren't redeemable until 30/24. He's so helpful that way, isn't he? Okay. Okay. So Anna, how's it going in your world?
Busy.
Busy.
Very busy. I just had a meeting with the health department for my ferments, and what's the term? Steaming ahead.
Full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead. Thank you. Yes, full
I'm
steam
here for
ahead.
it.
So this week is
Awesome.
going to be insanely busy preparing all of the ferments and then sending them off to the lab, and then once the inspections take place, I'll be able to sell stuff online and in stores and everywhere.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Very excited.
That's
Business
a great
is moving
step,
forward.
right? Okay, so we're going to start taking questions. So if you have questions, it's a huge help, you guys, if you put them in all capitals so that I catch them. Because remember, I'm grabbing them from 3 channels.
I did get one question on my post.
Okay.
I'm going to try and find it. Keep going. I'm going to try and
I
find
have
it.
one.
Because
I
I
have one
replied.
too.
So
Okay, Darcy, go ahead if you have yours ready.
Okay, so asked on one of my posts is what's the safest way to thaw meat to can?
Okay.
Thaw frozen meat to can.
The safest way is to take it from the freezer into the refrigerator.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's just what they always tell you. That may not always be the practice, but that's the safest way. It's kind of like at Thanksgiving. How do you thaw a 20-pound turkey? You take it out a week in advance and put it in a refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that, and it's never thawed. Ever. So
Same.
Okay, good. I'm like, maybe I just keep a really cold refrigerator. I don't know.
It could be that you're just low. If you keep it, especially in the lower part of your refrigerator, that's where the coldest is.
Actually, I put it in the crappy refrigerator in the garage, and it still does not thaw. So, yeah, at some point or another, I end up pulling it out and putting it in the sink. But yeah, we're all good. Okay, Anna, what was your question?
I got the question. There's a bit of a backstory to it, but she's wondering if an approved ketchup recipe that calls for fresh tomatoes, can she substitute the canned sauce?
Yeah, I'm actually getting this question a lot lately. Yes, absolutely, you can. And I don't remember the quota, for how much equals how much. But I do have a video up that says you don't need a garden. And it's how to make the salsa without fresh tomatoes if you don't have fresh tomatoes using canned. So if you find that video, I believe I mentioned the quota in there, and or just message me and I will happily dig that up for you and let you know. But yes, you absolutely can. And you
but I wanted to make
sure.
sure.
You still have to use, you still have to do it like you're doing fresh, because once it's canned, doesn't mean, oh, I don't have to add lemon juice. No, you absolutely still have to add lemon juice, bottled lemon juice. So even though I don't like the taste of lemon, I have never tasted lemon in it. I don't know.
Why.
Yeah. It's the acidity is very important. So Okay, so now I got to back up because I've been talking. Okay, hang on, because they're not in capitals. Okay, so I fermented a jar of sweet potatoes with garlic and ginger. Then they sat in my fridge for a few months. Now they smell boozy as heck. Is this vodka?
It's not vodka, but it is likely to have a higher alcohol content because due to the sweet potatoes, they have such a high sugar content. They would have fermented very quickly. It's not going to be dangerous if it looks fine. If it doesn't smell rancid, I mean, you're fine to consume it, but it'll definitely, it'll taste boozy for sure.
So it could so it'll taste boozy. Is it boozy?
Yeah. Not heavily, but yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
All sugar pretty much ferments down eventually to alcohol.
Okay.
If you let it go long enough.
Awesome. Should you remove the skin from chicken thighs before canning? You don't have to. It will basically melt away during the canning process. So you don't have to at all.
So is that the same reason why we don't have to be really picky about taking the fat off of chicken breast or anything? Yep. You don't have to be so about taking
during
it off.
The canning process for any of the meats. The fat content, even like venison, for anybody that's a hunter out there, there was a discussion in our Facebook group this week about how do I get rid of the gamey taste. I have never had gamey tasting canned venison, whether it's ground or in chunks, because during the canning process, it melts away the fat and melts away the skin. If it's salmon, it melts away the bones. And with venison, it melts away the silver skin, which is where you get your gamey taste from. So, it's all just fine. If it happens to be a high fat content like pork, then you do want to try to trim, but it's marbled in there also. So it's not really a thing. Anna, have you done the Ball Book pickled red cabbage?
I have not, but I'm intrigued.
I'm trying to grow some red cabbage. So if I get red cabbage, I'm going to do that.
Ditto.
I have one more from my email.
Okay.
That came in from this. Can you can frozen string beans?
Yes.
And they won't get mushy.
They're going to be soft.
But more so than if you use fresh.
They're not going to be pureed. So I guess that's how sensitive your palate is.
Okay. But will they be more mushy than if you did them from fresh?
No. Not noticeable. At least not for me, not noticeable. Okay.
I'll let her know.
Because frozen green beans I like frozen green beans. I hate canned green beans. So it should, you should be fine. You should be fine. They're pretty close to fresh because I'll sit in the garden and eat the green beans off the plant. I love it. Darcy, any tips for successfully dehydrating okra?
It depends on what you're going to use it for after. Are you going for powder? Are you going for slices to eat? Are you going for slices to snack on? If you're going to store it for a long time because you want to cook it later, I would blanch it before you do it. But a lot of people will just slice it and season it and dry it for snacking. And if you're going to go to powder, just puree it. Well, I wouldn't not puree it because you're not going to get to a puree, but like put it in a food processor and just grind it until it's like little bits, then dry it. And then you've got a smaller bit for making powder and you use that to use as what's this stuff called? I cannot remember it, but people use it to thicken gumbos and stuff like that too. So it depends on how you're going to use it to how you're going to dry it.
Nice. Can you take home canned chicken stock, boil chicken in it, freeze it, and reuse?
Home canned chicken stock, boiled chicken.
You can't do it if it was raw.
But why would you add bones to chicken broth?
Well, yeah. So this is what I'm getting from it. So you might have to put another question in there and wait till we come back around to it. But if you have a jar of chicken stock and you put it in a pot and you take either cooked or raw chicken and you put that in there and you boil the chicken, then yes, you can freeze it. I don't understand the reuse. You're going to have to give me a little more information.
I think probably to use it again later to cook with, like that same broth.
Yeah.
Cook with it later, as long as the chicken was fully cooked.
Yeah.
Because if it's even a little bit raw, then no, you can't reuse it.
Yeah. Can you make pasta sauce from tomato powder? You can.
And I have a recipe on my website. If you don't care about that.
No, go ahead.
On the Purposeful Pantry, if you'll look up uses for tomato powder, there is a recipe in there for that.
And if you want tomato powder and you don't care about the fact that there's literally nothing in there except for tomatoes, and so it clumps up, okay, Thrive tomato powder is on clearance and it's really cheap. And literally you cannot produce your own tomato powder for as inexpensive as they've got it. So, yeah.
Follow-up question, can you then can that?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, because
I just figure somebody's probably going to wonder that.
Yeah, it's probably not.
Yeah, I would just, I mean, that's a make as you go kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can make pasta sauce. You can make tomato, what is it? Oh, tomato paste.
You can make everything with it.
Make everything with it. It just depends on how much how much liquid you add to it. Yep. So it's pretty cool. It's a great thing to have. What's the best way to process broccoli? It's my favorite veggie. I know you can't can it, but can you freeze dry it successfully?
I can't tell you that because I haven't tried that. You can dehydrate it easily. I do it all the time. I'm sure you can freeze dry it. I have not tried it. I mean, Thrive has
freeze dried broccoli, and I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that stuff. That's like the fastest broccoli cheese omelet you've ever had in your life, and soup and all kinds of, it's great. Follow up, want to dehydrate and store to fry later.
For frying.
For the okra.
Yeah. I'm going to say no. But I know that there's probably somebody who's done it out there. The problem is that once you rehydrate it, it doesn't come back like fresh. So you're going to have a softer okra, even though it's kind of a pretty firm vegetable as it is. You may be able to do it and be okay with it, but it may not be like if you had done fresh. I'm pretty sure somebody's done it because I seem to remember a conversation in my group about doing it. But if you want really fresh fried okra, it may not be quite the same. But you could probably do it.
Darcy, I received a Kasori dehydrator for Mother's Day. When drying herbs, should I dry each one individually? Will their flavors mix?
Nope, it won't do them all. Do them all together. The only thing that you don't want to do is combine any raw meat with anything else. You don't want to combine aromatics with fruit or vegetables that you don't want to taste like the aromatics. So you don't want to do onions, garlic, peppers with some delicate vegetables, or you don't want to do them with fruit. I said raw meat, and you should do mushrooms separately. But think about the fact that when you're drying things, dry similar foods together. So things with similar profiles or similar temperatures. Those are the things you should do together. Did I just say mushrooms? I told you I still have brain farts that I can't remember what I just said. And do mushrooms separately, especially if they've been foraged.
Okay. Everybody, 3-4 weeks later, anesthesia is still messing with her brain. So
yeah, sorry, and just tired. The non-sleep thing is just killing me.
Okay, so why do some ferments use a breathable cover and some airtight?
It depends on the yeast and bacteria that you're trying to culture. Some of them are aerobic and some of them are anaerobic. So some thrive best with oxygen and some thrive best without oxygen. The majority of them thrive best without oxygen. And but like things like milk kefir, kombucha, several things that require a SCOBY, like a dedicated SCOBY, like a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. It's got its own little mass that you use. Predominantly, those are more aerobic, whereas like vegetable ferments like sauerkraut or, fermented carrots, things like that, they thrive best without oxygen. So it depends on the needs of whatever you're fermenting.
Awesome. Okay, so back to the chicken stock. I don't have any more veggies to season the chicken. I need to boil and don't want a bland taste. So
some herbs and stuff.
Yeah, throw herbs in there, and
then cook. I would actually, if it were me, I would just go ahead and cook a meal with that broth. I wouldn't try to freeze it and reuse it. Just go ahead and cook, like make it soup. Or cook some rice in it or do something immediating with it. And then add some herbs.
I mean, you can it or you can freeze it. And if you freeze it, you can thaw it out, heat it up, and can it. I'm going to say don't overthink this whole process. Yeah. If you don't have enough with the flavor profile that you want with the scrap veggies, then throw it in the freezer and come back to it when you want. I hope we're understanding that completely, but I'm not sure. If you go to clearance or discontinued, it'll be there on the website. Oh, on Thrive Life. Hi. Suttonsdays.thrivelife.com. That's where it's at.
Yeah, I'm trying to put that in there. And
I'm like, oh yeah, these are not all. Yeah. Okay. I have a recipe for spaghetti sauce canning. Can I add partially cooked ground beef to it and pressure can it? If so, for how long for quarts? Okay, so if you didn't get your recipe from a approved site, Ball, National Center, whoever, and you want to add meat to it, then my recommendation is to can it for the meat time. So that would be for 90 minutes for quarts. That's what I would do. That's what I have done. If you're not using an approved recipe, understand that you're going to be cooking that for a hot minute. And so it might change the flavor profile a little bit. Okay. Ooh, check it out. I Googled the pH of vodka is around or 7, whiskey between 3 and 4. So I guess I have sweet potato whiskey.
Nice.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Now Google's talking to me. Okay.
because Google wants some whiskey now too.
Can you dehydrate coffee grounds?
That was my question.
On the website.
I mean, if you're trying to dry coffee grounds, sorry, tell her to hush.
Hush, child.
If you're trying to dry coffee grounds that you made to put in your garden, just put it out on a paper towel and let it air dry. Don't waste the electricity because it will dry that way. And you're not trying to save it for something. You're not trying to keep it food safe, because if you're just going to put it in the garden, it didn't matter.
Yeah, you don't have to dry it to put it in the garden. You just
right. But if you want to store it because you don't want to do it right then, but you do want to put it away and not grow mold, you can air dry it. It's not like something that you need to waste energy on. But then yes, you can put it in the dehydrator and dry it out if you need to.
Okay, why do my jars try to float or turn over when I water bath? If your headspace is proper, they shouldn't. So I guess my question is, what is your process? Are you doing your process correctly? There are racks meant for different size jars. I've never had this happen, so I'm going to assume it's a headspace issue. Because I've even put 1/2 pint and 4-ounce jars into a rolling boil pot and they don't move. They go straight to the bottom.
Yeah,
So
I've
I would
never
check
experienced that either.
Yeah. Check your headspace. Okay. Yes, thank you, Shonda. Please, capitals are so important, you guys. It keeps me from going blind. It keeps me happy. Okay, canning question. Hey, Kelly. If I have 12 jars, 2 layers, but not a full canner, do I have to put a full layer on the bottom, or can I put the one on? Yeah, I mean, if you've got 12, you can put 4 on the bottom and 8 on top. It doesn't matter as long as they're in the canner. Michelle says she's going to be testing her first fermented sauerkraut today.
Oh, I love it. Congratulations.
Now I'm like totally want to try this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Colette, I wish I could help you. I can't. Electric pressure canners are not approved. I don't do anything with them. And yeah, neither does the National Center for Home Food Preservation. So I can't help you there, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Okay. Ooh, gosh. Okay, so Danielle says, I put used dry coffee grounds in my homemade soap bars. Great exfoliator. Yeah, it's a great. Ooh, I could make the most awesome hazelnut soap. Okay, now I have a goal. Thanks, guys. I needed another thing on my to-do list. Yes. So I made your meatballs, Lisa, and filled with homemade marinara. Is this safe? I had a little siphoning, but they did all seal. If you can them for the meat time, yes, they're safe. Yes, they're safe. I've done it with pasta sauce. I find it more flexible to use water or a broth as opposed to that. But yeah, absolutely. Okay, so JD says, my sauerkraut worked. Now, how long will it last in the refrigerator?
It really depends on the temperature of your refrigerator. But usually, I mean, I've consumed ferments like so far up to like a year and a half after I've made them,
Really?
and they're totally fine. They'll just get slightly more acidic with time. But the nice thing about putting them in the fridge is that the acids have time to kind of further penetrate the vegetables, and it really helps to intensify. It intensifies the flavor, but not necessarily making it more acidic. Like it's hard to explain exactly. Like it just makes it.
You just get better flavor, but not more acid.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
with a lot of time, you'll get more acid, but
Right.
it would take a long time to get more acid. It's usually just way more delicious.
Okay, that's
You can even put a ferment in the fridge that you didn't particularly care for out the gate, put it in there and forget about it for 6 months, come back, and it's going to be the most delicious thing you ever tasted. I've done it several times.
Okay. Michelle says, if using a steam canner, can you double stack jelly jars? They do not recommend that. They say don't do that in the manual. Rhonda, I purchased a NutriChef dehydrator used that didn't come with a manual, and I can't find one online for this model. It has a dial and an on-off switch. Do I need to worry about the dial?
Well, I'm assuming the dial on that one is the temperature. So you use the on-off to turn it on and off, and the dial should be set to whatever temperature you need to use. If it only has medium, like low, medium, and high, low is probably 125 or just under. Medium is going to be about 135 to 140, and high is probably going to be anything over 140. But if you go to my website and in the search bar, click manual, there is a page that has a lot of manual that you can go open. I don't know if I don't have every machine ever made because they're popping up everywhere. But your manual may be on there that you could look it up. But that telling me more about that dial, I can't tell you more than that.
Okay. How many layers can you pressure can? Okay, so the deal is if you want to do like 3 layers of the squat jars, right? Like squat jars. You can do that. That's fine. But you're going to want to put 2 racks on the bottom to lift it up a little bit. And then you put in the same amount of water that you would if you were doing quarts. Okay. And then there has to be a rack between each layer of jars. So you can do it, but I do highly recommend putting 2 racks on the bottom just to raise it up a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so scroll. I have my first American Standard older canner, and none of my jars make the ceiling pop. Maybe it does happen in the canner. Okay, I don't think the canner has anything to do with it. If you are canning it at the approved time, most of the lids that are out post-pandemic don't pop anymore. It's like one of the disappointments of the pandemic, okay? With all of the new manufacturers, the lids just don't make that ping anymore that, everyone used to get so excited about. So they're quite, and it doesn't matter. The ping, the audible ping is not an indicator of success or failure. Whether or not the lid's sealed is the indicator of success or failure. So I would worry about that. And it can happen in the canner as opposed to out, but yeah, that's not what you should be factoring as a success or failure. Ooh, she uses hazelnut coffee grounds in her stuff. Yay. Okay. I'm not a fan of sour ferments, but I know they are so good for you. Can you please recommend a couple to try or make?
Probably like carrot sticks would be a really good one because they still have a little bit of sweetness left to them. And you can also just not ferment it for as long until you kind of develop the flavor, because once you start to consume fermented foods, you start to crave fermented foods because you've inoculated your body with the bacteria that thrives best consuming these things. So when you put them into your body, they will start to crave it because your gut almost completely controls what you crave. So if you give it good food, it will crave good food. It might take a little bit of time, but you will eventually get accustomed to it. And then as time goes on, you can just ferment it for, longer and longer. But carrot sticks is a great place to start.
Carrot sticks are always good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Living an Eclectic Life says we are trying to ferment carrot sticks now.
Nice.
Can't wait to try it in a week. Oh, okay. I'm just.
Oh, that does.
I will. Okay, sorry, wrong thing. Oh, I crave my milk kefir now.
See, it works. I promise. You just gotta, white knuckle it for a little while, and if that's your desire, you just white knuckle it for a little while, and then
Right.
you love it.
So, do you think, in your expert opinion, that say I'm going to ferment carrots, okay, and Phil's not a big fan of pickled carrots. I love pickled carrots, and he's really not on board with this whole fermented thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not sure about it, do you think that over time you'll acquire a taste for it? Is it just that it's unfamiliar?
Mm-hmm. That's been my experience. And I mean, I sell a tremendous amount of fermented foods to people. I mean, I was birthed with the absolute desire. My sister and I both absolutely devoured pickled foods growing up. So I'm not a sentiment of that, but I sell to a lot of people who just want to start because they want to have better gut health. And then they'll come back like a month or two later and they're like, I just can't get enough of this stuff. And
okay, see, that's cool.
It happens a lot. But that's why I always recommend starting on the lower side. So it's not quite as acidic, but you're still getting, a fair amount of the bacteria that will then start to crave more and more.
Okay. I'm determined to find a way to preserve fresh cucumbers and peppers and not use a grocery store all winter and spring. Have you tried fermenting them just to use fresh all winter?
Well, they wouldn't be fresh.
They wouldn't be fresh, yeah.
Yeah, I have fermented both. And as long as you pop in some kind of a source of tannins into it, I just put a black tea bag in the bottom of the jar, and that keeps them nice and crunchy. And it's usually delicious. Cut off the blossom end like a 1/16 of an inch. Those two things, making sure all the spices that you use are submerged, and you'll have really, really good success with that. Cucumbers tend to break down quicker than most other vegetables, so I wouldn't recommend doing it for like a year or two because they'll get kind of mushy, but they'll still taste really good, and it's a great way to preserve them.
So, you said to put a tea bag in.
Mm-hmm. Black tea bag.
Plain black tea, yeah. It does the tea flavor the vegetables at all?
Nope. Not in my opinion, and I hate the taste of tea. I don't like it. I love kombucha because it doesn't taste like tea. I hate tea. I want to love tea. I desperately want to like tea, but I can't.
I can't. It's not coffee. Yeah.
It's Thank you.
Yeah, I know. You like coffee like I do. I know.
Yeah, but I'm a tea girl, so I love tea.
Yeah.
But I have to take blends that are not quite bitter, because there's some that are like super bitter and super tanniny, and I go with a little less.
So coffee wouldn't work the same as tea? A coffee bean?
I don't know if it has tannins or not. Oh, I've never looked that up. It's the tannins that preserve it. So if it's got tannins, it'll probably work.
I once tried fermenting peppercini peppers. They turned out bitter. Did I mess up fermenting process? Maybe I started with mildly bitter peppers. Any ideas?
It most likely fermented at too high of a temperature and created, this is my guess, I haven't seen it and I don't know any more information, but typically if it ferments at too high of a temperature, it'll develop something that is non-toxic, but has a bitter flavor called calm yeast. And that tends to happen with really sweet things or things that ferment at a high temperature, causing a rapid fermentation. That yeast will grow. Oftentimes it'll settle into the jar and cause it to become bitter.
Okay.
That's just my guess with the information given.
Okay. What time should I can vegetable broth for? If you look on my channel and find the video for canning onion stock, that's the time, because that's the approved vegetable time through Bernardin. I don't have it memorized. I apologize. But if you find that video, that'll tell you. Can I have my fruity vinegar next to my kombucha?
No, they'll swap cultures. I mean, you can, but they'll swap cultures. Like, you won't die, neither will the ferments, but it'll change the ferments. They'll kind of merge into one.
Well,
if you want to keep the integrity of each, you need to keep them at least 8 feet apart.
Okay. From experience, how long do you have to drink water kefir until gut health is repaired?
I've been drinking it for about 3 years now, off and on, and I don't know. It doesn't repair. It helps you. It helps you're giving your body things that it needs to heal itself. So it kind of just depends on where you're starting at. I mean, you'll get better, but I don't want to like promise people that all of a sudden like their gut's going to be completely healed and you're never going to have an issue in your life. It's just one of those tools that you add to help. So just keep drinking
there may
it.
not be a cure, but there's
Exactly.
something
Yes.
that helps so that you don't have the issues anymore.
Exactly.
Okay. I apologize for the dogs, you guys. I have no idea what's going on.
They probably don't either.
I made my first vinegar and love it. Any fruits I shouldn't try as vinegars?
I don't know. I suck at making vinegar. I always refer people to Heidi over at Rain Country Homestead. She's like the vinegar queen. I've never seen anything that she's like, don't do that as far as vinegar go. I mean, it's kind of free reign. Like you're just fermenting sugar, and if it's got sugar in it, it'll ferment.
Okay, that's cool. Dominic says fermented zucchini are easier and crisper than cucumbers.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to try that.
And I want to go back to Jennifer. Jennifer, I don't know that there's going to ever be a way that you can get cucumbers saved that they're going to be like fresh. There's pretty much nothing that you can do that they're going to be
They're
like fresh.
mostly water, so
Yeah.
you're not.
And so once you do anything to it, it's either going to make them mushy. And if you don't want to use the tea, if you can find another, like Anna said, another version of tannin that you can put in there to help with that crunch, that may be it. You can dehydrate them, because I do, and I use them in tzatziki sauce during the year when I don't have fresh cucumbers. You can freeze dry them for the same way.
I've used the freeze-dried ones, and they're amazing for tzatziki sauce once you fresh them. Yeah.
And so you could put those in your salad, and they will be different than having a fresh, crunchy cucumber. They're like, I know the dehydrated ones are more chewy. The freeze-dried ones are more, I wouldn't say crunchy, but they will be a little bit crunchy for a little while till they start absorbing moisture and stuff. But there are other ways you can use them. You're just never going to get that fresh off the vine cucumber crunch in any preservation method other than like pickling, if you can get a fresh crunchy pickle. So
I washed my carrots and ferment them, but they seem to have dirt in the jar. Can I wash the carrots and put them back into the jar, or just toss them and start again?
What's your reason for not wanting to consume the dirt?
Because
I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, it might be considered not food safe somehow in a preservation method.
In fermentation, like the soil is where most of the bacteria comes from. So
right.
I don't really care. Like I was able to cure myself of an oxalate sensitivity by just brushing off my carrots and stuff and not like completely washing them. So I'm not dirt-phobic. I don't think there's a way that you can remove it once you've fermented it. But I mean, as long as it's good organic soil, like there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe just don't consume the bottom sediment. I wouldn't be afraid of it.
No. Dirt don't hurt.
In fermentation, obviously, it does not.
Right. Now, canning and dehydrating.
Canning is a totally different story.
And see, for dehydrating, I also don't care that much about dirt because it comes off. So
does it come off?
Yeah, I mean, once you take the water out and things dry, things that were stuck on them tend to fall off, or they can fall off depending on what it is, and like brush it off and you're good. And if you eat a little tiny bit of dirt, it's not the same as canning though. I wouldn't
canning. Get the dirt out of there.
Yeah.
Canning, no dirt. Bad dirt. Okay. Canning soaked pinto beans overnight. Too many for my jars. Can the extra be put in empty jars to can the following day? Yeah. I wouldn't bother putting them into extra jars or into empty jars. Fill the jars that you can today. Give the beans a really good rinse. Okay. Put them in cold water. Put them in the fridge. Now they're probably going to swell a little bit more, and they may ferment a little bit, but they should still be good. There's nothing safety wise that doesn't make them cannibal.
Or you can cook them and dehydrate them.
Or you
Sorry.
can cook them and dehydrate them. Okay. Two canning jars didn't pop and seal within the usual few minutes. There's no usual few minutes. There's 24 hours. Okay. So if you're messing with those jars before, at the earliest, if you're messing with them before 8 hours, you're impacting their success. You have 24 hours, and towards the end of that 24 hours, if they have not sealed, okay, then you can either reprocess them, eat them, or put them in the fridge. Your choice. Because during the canning process, the air, the whole process vacates the air from the jar, okay? Because the lid is down. Now, it may not have sealed, but the lid is down. So no air is getting into that jar unless you screw with it. No air is getting into that jar after you pull it out. That's why you have up to 24 hours. So number one, don't touch them, okay? You discover them the next morning, which is what you should do, and you put them in the fridge. They are not sealed, not by any stretch. You just put them in the fridge. So you either need to reprocess them or you need to eat them. You have like a week if they're in your fridge. But no, they will never be shelf stable unless you reprocess them. And because it's cooked, you have to reprocess it as hot pack. So you have to add liquid to it. I want to make herb salt this year with herbs from my garden. Any tips?
2 tips. Mix your herbs and your salt fresh. Put them in your oven or your dehydrator. Dry them together that way. Dry your herbs. Mix them with some salt.
Mm-hmm.
Grind them up afterwards. I mean, you've got both ways. Will work depending on what you want. That way you can store them. You can make fresh herb salt and not dry it if you're going to use it for like all of it right then. But if you're wanting to store it, you can use either of those 2 methods. I prefer to dry first and then add it to salt later, because that way I can use those herbs for anything else I want and just mix up what I need at a time. Because I tend to forget about my herb salt if I make them and then store them, because then I just don't see them because they're not going to be on my stovetop. So it's easier for me to make it as I need it rather than storing it. But you can do either method. They both work. Just make sure you get those herbs good and dry if you do them in the fresh method, because if you put them away even just a little bit wet, over time, I know salt can help preserve it, but still over time you just run that risk of mold formation if you stick them away and they weren't fully dry.
Okay. Is milk kefir good for lactose intolerance?
100% scientifically proven in a lab. The reason is that the food for the milk kefir is the lactose that is in the milk. And so they thrive on digesting it. So you're inoculating your body with the bacteria that thrives on digesting lactose.
Awesome. Darcy, can you use frozen strawberry tops for your vinegar recipe? Did you have a vinegar recipe? Did I miss your vinegar recipe?
Yeah, you probably did. It's not fermented like Anna's. It's just okay. It's soaked vinegar.
Mine's not fermented like mine either. I suck at it.
I would want to say yes, but I would not put them in frozen. I would thaw them first, because I don't know what that water content might do if it starts releasing a lot of extra water, because it can do that. I've not ever done it from frozen before. So thaw them first, then use them. That way, if there's any release of liquid, you're not putting it into the vinegar. Right, because some fruits, when they thaw, they like release a ton of liquid, versus if you put them in fresh and it's just the liquid that's in the fresh. Mm-hmm. I would thaw them first just to be safe.
Then, okay, so, well, yeah, you're going to
thaw. You're still going to store it in the refrigerator anyway. This is not a shelf-stable vinegar. Right. I just don't know how that extra liquid might affect what it's like. So, yeah, I've not tried that, so I don't know how that would work out.
Interesting. Hamakua Homestead's in the house.
Hey, Tiffany.
So she says 35 minutes for quartz vegetable broth, according to Bernard. Yep. I don't have it memorized.
Why not?
You can watch the rest of it. I mean, I don't know which channel you're coming from. It's either Anna's or Darcy's, but yeah, these will be up on our live video, so you can go watch.
It'll be in the live tab.
Yep.
On the channel.
Any idea how to put eggplant on your shelf? Dehydrate it.
You can dry it in slabs. You can dry it in cubes. You can dry it in shreds. You can dry it and freeze it if you want to. If you do want to freeze some, you can partially dry it and then put it in the freezer, and it makes it less wet when you're trying to use it later. But if you're just trying to get on the shelf, just dry it.
So I have a question, because zucchini, I get, mm-hmm. I'm pretty good at zucchini. So when I cut them into slabs and put them in a dehydrator, They shrink up so eggplant's going to do the same thing, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
less. I think a little less than zucchini does because I think
Okay.
it's a part of it's a meatier.
Is it?
I think it's a little meatier. To me, they feel meatier than
Okay.
zucchini does because the seed content also affects it that way.
Right.
But it's going to shrink. Yeah, it's not going to be the same plank that you had when you had it fresh.
Well, I mean, zucchini super shrinks.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
putting your wool sweater in the dryer on hot, Yeah, it's bad. Okay, what is a good dehydrator to purchase? Approximately 10 trays, middle pricing.
What's middle pricing to you, and what country do you live in? I'm assuming if you're in the U.S., middle pricing is less than $200 for you. You can go with the Kasori, which is I think around it's around 200. The Excalibur 10 tray cafe style, is that what they're called now? It's the Excaliburs that have the doors that open this way. It's the newer models that they've just gotten out. Those will be on the lower end of the $200 range. A 10 tray, like maybe a Colzer, I think that has one. Magic Mill has one. If you just go with a good name brand, don't go with some knockoff brand that you've never heard of before, but they're all fine.
And check out Darcy's channel. She has at least one video on comparing different dehydrators.
Yeah,
So,
about like
yeah. I mean, she's tried a lot of them.
And there are very few of them I would never recommend. The only one that I would ever not recommend right now is the cheapest Presto that's out there, and the Kasori stackable. Those are the only two that I would say I wouldn't buy either. Well, that's not true. There are a lot of cheap dehydrators that I would say don't buy. But I'm talking about these are name brand dehydrators. They're the only two that I would say don't buy. Well, the Hamilton Beach stackable, I wouldn't buy it either.
I had the Nesco catch fire.
I had a Kasori catch. Well, not catch fire, but pretty close to it. Lisa saw the photos.
Yeah, it was
like hell inside of it. It was unplugged.
I would have been
not plugged in, and it was still looked like hell on the inside of it. It was still so bright red that stayed that way for so long. I'm not saying Kasoris are bad. Every machine, every single dehydrating machine, no matter what brand it is always going to have one machine that goes bad. I mean, it's electronics. They're going to do that. But it was scary because it was out in the garage, and it was only, I'll say this phrase, by the grace of God that day that I happened to walk out there to check on it and burn my hand when I touched the machine because I hadn't looked down enough yet. And then when I opened it, it was like, what the heck? So I unplugged it really hard, and it took forever for that to it was awful. It was scary. So
mine was tucked behind our couch.
Yeah, that would be bad.
I do have a question about dehydrators though, because you know that my Excalibur is older than dirt, right? Mm-hmm. And we discovered when I was dehydrating chicken feet, super cool for the puppies, by the way. They love this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
But it only goes up to 145. Mm-hmm. So with the newer dehydrators, what's the typical temperature they go up to?
Most of them go up to at least 160.
Okay.
Some are going up to 190 now.
Okay, cool. Okay.
You need me to send you a dehydrator? It's not like I don't have 14 of them in the garage.
You know, I'm just kind of like, it's not broken, so I'm not gonna, not gonna mess
145 is considered safe for doing any kind of meat.
Well, like
except for chicken. And then you can still put it in the oven after at 275 for about 10 minutes to do the oven blast.
Yeah.
To take care of any bacterial issues. So
they were in there for 24 hours.
Yeah. And as little as you use yours. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's just it. I mean, I literally have to dust mine off and, I don't use it that often. Okay. So question, if the fat on beef melts, then solidifies, is the broth? No, it's not bad. No, it's not bad. Just pull it out of the jar. That's it. Just pull it out of the jar. It's perfectly fine. Fat is where your flavor is. You just don't want 4 inches of fat, But when you're canning meat that has fat in it, the look of the amount of fat is extremely deceptive because what it does is it pushes it from the inside out along the outside of the jar. So there's really not that much fat. It's just how it distributed to the jar during the canning process. So you are good.
Did you want me to answer that previous question that was up there?
Did I miss one? Mm-hmm. Okay. What was it? Go ahead.
Something about a bug. Like why do you have? Yeah, why do you have to add a bug to certain ferments? And that's because you're trying to achieve a certain result. Like for kombucha, if you just naturally leave sweet tea out on the counter, it's very likely not going to turn into it. Well, it's not really. It will not turn into kombucha. So you're trying to make kombucha. So you add a kombucha culture, which is inoculated with the yeast and the bacteria of kombucha to turn it into kombucha. Same thing with milk kefir. If you don't add that bug to it, it's just going to either rot or turn into clabbered milk, depending if you're using raw milk or not. Whereas most other vegetables, like vegetable ferments, they come pre-inoculated with the bacteria needed to break it down. So you don't need to add a culture to it because that bacteria is already present on it. So it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. Like if you want to make yogurt specifically, you add a yogurt strain because it's already got the bacteria and the yeast in that culture. Whereas if you just leave it out, again, it'll just make clabbered milk, which you don't really know. You're at the whim of the atmosphere as to how it's going to turn out. Whereas if you want something specific, add a starter culture because that's what's going to take over quicker.
Okay, sorry. I know I had that up on the screen and then
We got chatting.
I know. Okay, so in the case of unsealed meat, can you also freeze them? Yes. If a jar doesn't seal and you prefer to freeze it, you absolutely can. What is your favorite way to cook ground beef in bulk? I pull out my roaster. I cuss at it a whole bunch because it's running hot lately. And then I just par cook it. You want to cook it medium, not well done. I never season my meat when I can it because I want the option of picking what I'm going to use it for when I open that jar. I'm not saving any time by putting taco meat in there or taco seasoning in there. I'm saving no time because it literally takes me that long to add taco seasoning.
And taco seasoning can often contain cornstarch, and that not
commercial
okay?
taco seasoning contains fillers, so you have to watch for that stuff too. So I don't, just par cook it, put it in a jar, add the liquid. Liquid is non-negotiable. You can put tomato juice, you can put beef broth, you can put water. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I would skip seasoning. Okay, Darcy, you can cook beans and dehydrate. What is the texture when you rehydrate them?
They are going to be broken. They're not going to be whole beans because you've cooked the bean, and that skin is going to break just like a grape or a blueberry or anything like that. So they'll be broken up. So if you're trying to make a very bean-centric dish, like, I don't know, I want to say like a 3-bean salad.
Yeah.
It's not going to work the same because you're not going to have these whole beans. But if you're putting them in something, who cares if they're broken up? So they're fine. They rehydrate just fine.
One of my meatball jars didn't seal. I put it in a freezer container and put it in the fridge. Is it safe for? It's safe for approximately a week. Okay. On the subject of salt, I avoid anti-caking agents and only use coarse sea salt and grind when I use. Am I okay to use this in canning? Sea salt? Yes, because it's not iodinized. That's a word that is like aluminum for other people. I can't get it out. Anyway, it's not, yes, as long as it's not salt with iodine, then it's fine. Coarse sea salt, kosher salt, canning salt, pickling salt, those will all be fine. And actually, if you use salt with iodine in it, it just makes it cloudy. It doesn't affect the safety. So you're good.
Do you have to grind them before you use them so they're not such big particles? Or can you have the big particles and it's fine?
No, I mean, with the exception, actually, let me think about an exception here. Pickling, no. Salt is 100% for flavor only.
Okay. Well, because I know that they've always said, I always know that canning salt is really fine. And I've always heard of people making your own canning salt by just grinding the salt that you're going to use because it needs to be fine.
Yeah, no, canning salt is just salt that doesn't have iodine in it.
Okay.
It's another marketing tool. But there literally is not a canning recipe that I'm aware of that requires salt for safety and preservation. It is 100% for taste. I don't salt a single thing I put in a jar because we're old and it'll kill us. Okay. I can chili. How long does it take for the jars to seal? It can take
up to 24 hours.
Up to 24 hours, yeah, if you canned them properly. I'm terrified of making sauerkraut. I don't have all the fancy doodads and afraid of losing food.
Oh, sorry. There was a weird beeping going on. I didn't listen.
Okay,
I
I'm
was like, what the
terrified
heck
of,
is that beeping sound? I'm alone, so I don't know why.
okay, I'm terrified of making sauerkraut. I don't have all the fancy doodads, and I'm afraid of losing money.
It's a risk you take with fermentation. Just be careful with it. Make sure that everything is, you can use a mason jar. Just make sure that everything is held underneath the brine level, and you shouldn't have an issue with it. But I mean, I've been fermenting for 10 years, and even I still have an occasional failure. But
I know people that put dinner plates over the top of the sauerkraut to keep it down, in a big enough container. Yeah.
Yeah, just find something to hold it down. Make sure you set aside a leaf of the cabbage so that you can cut it out and do that. You can literally just use like a boiled rock, like just sanitize the rock that you found in the yard that fits inside your jar, and that'll hold everything underneath the brine. But yeah, I mean, just make sure you cut out all the oxygen. Use a tight-fitting sealed lid or an airlock of some kind to keep the oxygen out, and you should be good.
Dehydrated eggplant bacon.
Mm-hmm. That is a thing.
Have you tried making mock pineapple zucchini? I have not, but everybody that I know that has thinks it's amazing. So maybe this year, because I'm going to have an abundance of zucchini again. So somebody else, let's see, Nancy. Nope. Okay. Dehydrated chicken feet. Yes, Connie. Okay, thoughts on a solar dehydrator?
Use one if you have, just like using a sun oven, if you have enough sunshine in your day during the day. It's not about the heat, it's about the amount of solar light that you have, because you need to have it working properly. Now, if you're talking about one of the mesh hanging bags, that's not solar, that's air. And you can use those, but if you live in a really humid environment, it's probably not good to use because you've got all that humidity that's just there, not going to go away. You can use those indoors. If you have good airflow in a closet or something with a fan, you can use those easily. But if you're going to have a solar dehydrator and you've got the amount of sun that you need, build one and use it. They have a way, you've got ways to adjust the amount of heat that's in it with some designs, but some of them can be pretty big. And I'm just I guess I am practical and I just want to get my stuff done. And solar dehydrating isn't necessarily going to be as fast as an electric dehydrator, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. I mean, they're used everywhere. So go for it. You're just not going to have the same control over it that you have with the electric, but just adjust to it and you're going to be fine.
My dehydrator is a Presto from a yard sale. Have tested that it runs, but have not used it yet. What concerns do you have? What should I watch for?
That it actually heats and that it heats the temperature it's supposed to heat to. So I don't know if you've got the one temperature Presto or the one that has the adjustments. Make sure it heats to what it's supposed to heat to. So the one temperature should at least go to 145. You can do that with an oven thermometer. Make sure that the wiring looks like it's okay, that it's not frayed anywhere, because sometimes when people store stuff, they start pulling on those out the wires. So check the wire where it connects to the machine to make sure that that doesn't look frayed or broken right there. And for the first couple of times, just don't use it on something and walk away from it, just so you can test to see if it smells. Like if you start smelling electrical, get rid of it. It's like, don't just plug it in and walk away.
Yeah, God, no. I want to make cat food. Is it safe to dehydrate ground beef, lamb, or chicken?
Casey, I linked you a video to where I did ground beef, and in it I talk all about the fact that it's not reliably shelf stable because of fat rancidity, which is going to be that way for every meat, even venison, because venison has a little fat in it, not much, but it's got the possibility of a little fat. Right. So you can do it. Your shelf stability is going to be anecdotal. So what I stored on the shelf isn't necessarily what somebody else might be able to store on the shelf too. I've made it 9 months so far on one batch that I have up testing. But it doesn't mean that you're going to get 9 months out of it. So it is one of those things, because it's not cured, it's not reliably shelf stable. That doesn't mean you can't store it on the shelf. Just know that you may find that it might turn rancid after a while. So that's the issue.
Okay. Tammy, I believe in simplicity and options. I'm huge into options. I don't want 50 jars of taco meat on my shelf. I want 50 jars of ground beef on my shelf that I can turn into taco meat or whatever. So I mainly do with water. I don't like painting myself into a corner.
But I wonder if that would help people who think that ground beef doesn't taste good if they did it with broth instead of water, that it would add a little bit of flavor that doesn't make it smell.
90% of the people that comment about not liking canned ground beef are complaining about the texture. So that won't change the texture.
Okay.
Yeah. I made kraut for the first time recently. Once you're done, you will wish you had it earlier. Don't worry, you got this. That's funny. Okay.
No.
About 5 minutes.
What? Okay. Yep. So, what is a good budget price dehydrator? You kind of addressed this earlier.
Yeah.
So I would.
Nesco, Kasori. It depends on if you want a cabinet or a stackable. It depends on how big you want it, but Magic Mill, Kasori, Nesco are all in that lower price range. You can find one lower. But also remember, go to Facebook Marketplace, go to thrift stores,
Seriously.
go to neighborhood yard sales, ask your friends and family, because many of them may have purchased a dehydrator, used it once or twice, and put it away and never use it. So you can find them less expensively. But on my website, if you go to purposefulpainter.com/Kasori, there's a coupon there for a dehydrator for $125.99. I think that's what the price on it is still for a 6-tray Kasori, which is about $10 or $15 cheaper than you can typically get it on Amazon. But it comes from their home company. It doesn't come from Amazon itself. So, but Nesco's are, I think I checked the price on it yesterday for my video today, so I'd have the right price, and they're $85 for a stackable Nesco, not the 1000-watt Garden Master, but the other 85A, so because I can never remember the numbers between the different models. The one I use is $85 right now, and it's a 7-tray Nesco. So it just depends. I mean, you're going to find, stick with those name brands. Don't go after those brands you don't recognize, because some of them are good, but then a lot of them are not. So that's my thought.
If sugar is asked for in a recipe for fermenting, can sugar substitute be used?
Monk fruit or
for fermenting?
It depends on the sugar substitute, really, and it depends on the purpose of it. If you're adding sugar to it at like kombucha, absolutely not, because the sugar in the sugar, what the sugar is made out of is the fuel for the bacteria. So if you substitute it for something that doesn't have that fuel, it's going to die. And a lot of sugar substitutes are like pesticides and like herbicides, and they're very bad. I don't even understand why people consume most of them, but I mean, it's going to kill off your ferment because it's bacterial and it'll kill it. So in almost every case, I would say no. But if it's not used as a fuel, and you have researched it thoroughly, the sugar substitute, there may be some safe ones out there, but I would generally no. There may be exceptions.
Okay. Okay. So we are at the end. Our goal, okay. Our goal is to have this live chat once a month, always on a Saturday, always at this time. So we will try to get the graphic and the link up early. It's just with the right date and with the right link, and yeah.
Can I say an exception to that though? Because it's entirely possible that, remember we talked about when I get into the market, it might be moved an hour later.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the time. Yeah, the time.
Yeah, depending on what's going on with Anna, it might move an hour later, which would be cool too. But yes, so just keep an eye out for us. We do this once a month to try to help you guys do all of your fun stuff.
Normally it's the third Saturday of every month. We just had to move it back this month for stuff.
I was going to run a 5K, and then I found out a 5K is only 3 miles. Okay, so yeah, sorry guys. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't have done it last week either. So.
No, you were still.
I wouldn't do it any week. I can't even do like a 0.5K.
I do 3. Yeah, I do 3 miles every. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So everybody, thanks for putting up with all the confusion for this, and we will be back next month to answer all your questions. Keep an eye out for us, and I hope everybody in the States here has an awesome holiday, ladies. I hope you have a great holiday, an extra day off maybe for all of us. And
right. We're all business owners. We don't get days off.
Yeah, we don't get days off.
I know. It's nice and airy. Okay. Okay. Have a super great day. Until next time, everybody.